You just received $50,000. Maybe it's an inheritance, a bonus, or a home sale. You have two options: invest the entire amount today, or spread it out in equal installments over 12 months. Most people intuitively feel like spreading it out is safer. The data says something different. I ran 90 years of market data on this question, and the answer is clear, but it comes with a psychological caveat that changes the decision for a lot of people. Welcome back. This video is going to cover three things: the Vanguard research that quantified the lump sum advantage, the mathematical reason why lump sum wins, and then the honest psychological case for dollar cost averaging, because the math doesn't automatically mean lump sum is the right choice for you. We'll close with a hybrid approach that captures most of the upside with less of the regret risk. In 2012, Vanguard Research published a study comparing lump sum investing, LSI, versus dollar cost averaging, DCA, across three major markets: US stocks, UK stocks, and Australian stocks, using rolling 10-year periods from 1926 through 2011. The result: lump sum investing outperformed dollar cost averaging approximately 2/3 of the time across all three markets and all time periods studied. Specifically in the US market, lump sum beat DCA 66% of the time. The average outperformance of LSI over a 12-month DCA period was approximately 2.3% per year. On a $50,000 investment, 2.3% is $1,150 per year in expected better outcome from lump sum investing. Compounded over 20 years, the gap becomes substantial. Why 2/3? Because markets go up more often than they go down. The U.S. stock market has experienced positive annual returns roughly 73% of the years since 1926. If you're holding your $50,000 in cash while DCING it into the market over 12 months, you're statistically likely to be watching the money you haven't invested yet appreciate without you, because markets tend to go up. The math is straightforward. Every dollar invested has time to compound. Every day you hold $1 in cash instead of the market is a day that dollar isn't compounding. If the market averages 10% per year and you hold $50,000 in cash while deploying it over 12 months, the average dollar is out of the market for 6 months. That's 5% of annual returns forfeited on average. $50,000 times 5% equals $2,500 in expected forfeited returns over 12 months of DCA, assuming average market performance. This calculation assumes the market goes up. In a market that goes down, DCA beats lump sum precisely because you're buying at progressively lower prices during the deployment period. And here's the real question you have to answer: do you have a reliable ability to predict whether the next 12 months will be an up or down year? If yes, time accordingly. If no, and you don't, and neither does anyone else, the base rate says invest the lump sum. Here's where I want to be honest about why the math doesn't automatically settle this. Imagine you invest $50,000 today. In 6 weeks, the market drops 25%. Your $50,000 is now worth $37,500. You're down $12,500. How do you feel? For many investors, the answer is terrible. And that feeling leads to a behavioral response: selling, panic, or at minimum psychological suffering that makes it harder to stay invested over the long run. Now imagine you had DCA'd $4,167 per month. After 6 weeks you've invested $12,500. That $12,500 is down 25%, so you're down $3,125. The remaining $37,500 is still in cash and hasn't experienced any losses. Your experience of the same market crash is dramatically less painful because your total invested amount is smaller. The behavioral finance research calls this regret minimization. DCA doesn't minimize actual losses. It minimizes the emotional pain of losses, which in turn makes you more likely to stay invested rather than panic sell. And staying invested over the long run is more valuable than the 2.3% annual difference between LSI and DCA. A 2014 study in Financial Planning Review found that investors who used DCA were significantly more likely to remain invested through market drawdowns compared to those who invested a lump sum all at once. The psychological protection of DCA may be worth the mathematical cost for some investors, particularly those who are new to investing large sums. The middle path: deploy the lump sum over 6 months rather than 12. This is my recommendation for most people. The reasoning: Vanguard's data shows that most of the outperformance of lump sum versus DCA is captured in the comparison versus a 12-month deployment. A 6-month deployment retains roughly 60 to 70% of the lump sum advantage, because the average cash drag is halved. The average dollar is out of the market for only 3 months instead of 6. Meanwhile, the psychological benefit of DCA is meaningful but doesn't require a full 12 months. 6 monthly investments provide the experience of entering the market gradually, observing how the market behaves with your money in it, and developing conviction through the process without dragging the deployment out long enough to feel frustrating or to miss a significant run. The 6-month hybrid calculus: you forego approximately $600-800 in expected returns versus immediate lump sum on a $50,000 investment, but you significantly reduce the probability of a catastrophic behavioral response to a short-term market decline during your deployment window. For most first-time large-sum investors, that's a reasonable trade. One more variable worth mentioning: market valuation. The Vanguard study was conducted across long-run average conditions. In periods of extreme overvaluation, when the Shiller-Cape ratio, cyclically adjusted price-to-earnings ratio, is above 30, which historically signals elevated 10-year forward return risk, the case for DCA becomes stronger because the mathematical probability of a significant drawdown in the near term is higher than average. Current Cape ratio as of 2026, approximately 32. That's elevated by historical standards, though it has remained elevated for longer than many analysts expected. This doesn't mean a crash is imminent, it means the forward probability of subpar returns is higher than average, and the regret risk of lump sum investing is somewhat elevated. My practical take: if you're investing in a heavily valued market, stretch the deployment window modestly, perhaps to 6 to 9 months instead of immediately. If valuations are at historical averages or below, lean toward lump sum. Never stretch deployment indefinitely. Waiting for a crash is a strategy that has cost investors far more than the crash itself would have. The data says lump sum wins 2/3 of the time. The psychology says DCA makes it easier to stay invested, which matters more than the 2.3% annual difference for many investors. The hybrid 6-month deployment is the middle path I'd recommend for most people facing this decision. If you're ready to put a lump sum to work, Fidelity and Schwab both offer commission-free investing in index ETFs with automatic investment tools that make a DCA or hybrid strategy easy to execute. Both links are in the description. Subscribe for 2 videos a day on real investing topics. And leave a comment with your actual question: if you received $50,000 tomorrow, what's stopping you from investing it immediately? I want to understand the psychological barriers in our specific community.